If you were around in the early days of Diablo 2, you might recognize some of these. D2 has a checkered past of items that should have never existed. So how did they? From a ring of players that ruined the economy to a ring that blew the lid off the entire operation. This is the dark history of hacked items. Although hacked items and bugged items are terms often used synonymously, there's a difference. A bugged item is something that could theoretically spawn in-game. They still exist to this day. For example, triple durability lances are a hot commodity on classic D2, and you can still find them in D2R. In Lord of Destruction, some items can spawn with skills that shouldn't appear on them, such as Holy Shield Scepters and Whirlwind Helms. Alternatively, hacked items are ones that under no circumstance can ever spawn in-game. That being clarified, let's go back in time. Diablo 2's early economy was pretty simple. It basically revolved around perfect skulls and SOJs, the common currency at the time. You could practically trade for anything with these. This was the case for a very long time, even into the early days of the expansion. But when Blizzard started nerfing the power levels of items in the expansion, that triggered an avalanche of events. These are pre-patch and pre-expansion items. They weren't bugged or hacked, they just couldn't spawn anymore. And since they were more powerful than their newer counterparts, they became worth way more SOJs than you could fit in the trade screen. So to compensate, the common currency in D2 shifted more towards items like these. Oddly enough, some of these are still the currency in the game's 2021 remake, but if there ever were events that amplified the value of items outside the game itself, these expansion nerfs were those events. This was the age of Diablo items on eBay. Some sellers made enough to quit their jobs. The culture was ripe for exploits and item duplication methods to pop up. And pop up they did. While this era was largely profitable for a while, duped items soon ruled the realm and crashed the economy. It looked like the heydays of D2 profitability were over. That was until some new items started popping up. This is a fused unique. While it might look hacked, its existence is owed to a bug in the game that was unfathomably rare. In summary, Mephisto's drop table was weird, and under almost impossible odds, two unique items could fuse together. These extremely rare commodities became the new big thing, and originally there wasn't really that many of them. While Blizzard continued to chase down known dupe methods and patch them, these fused uniques eventually fell victim to it too. The Mephisto bug was ghost patched when loot tables were updated and magic find was changed, but strangely enough, new fused uniques somehow continued to surface. Whizspike gloves, along with some other wild fuse combinations, began appearing on US West, but it didn't stop there. Before long, the same exact version popped up on every online realm. Maybe the item dupers were just getting more creative, or maybe hackers were getting sloppy. The Oculus Ring was the most famous hacked item from this era. It was originally passed off as a fused unique. For a while, it even became the game's common currency. And while this also existed on each of the realms, there were discrepancies that started to make players question the legitimacy of these newer fused uniques. On US West, for example, the ring had 30% faster cast rate, the same abilities as the Oculus that it was supposedly fused from. But on US East, it had 30% faster block rate. That wasn't even on the original item. Additionally, under normal fusing circumstances, the ring should have been called the Oculus. And while this was a bit suspect, it wasn't until one ring in particular started circulating that players knew something wasn't right. The Constricting Ring could not possibly spawn in Diablo 2. Ever. While it's technically in the game files, it's marked as incomplete and set to never drop. But yet, there they were, healthily circulating in the game's economy. Hackers who originally tried to pass it off as a legitimate find had to reconcile yet another discrepancy. In the game files, the ring is listed as having drain life -30, but in the version of the ring that existed online, it had drain life -10. When players realized this, not only did they know the jig was up, but the hackers did too. Before long, all bets were off. It was open season for the release of the nastiest hacked items the realm had ever seen. This was the era of white items, along with other items that were so obviously hacked, there was no explanation for them. But the same vicious cycle haunted all the hacked items that ever popped up. Initial hype of their existence would drive eBay prices through the roof. Eventually, item dupers would get their hands on one, and that item would no longer be worth anything. But there was tons of money being made off that initial hype, and Blizzard wasn't happy. The Rust Storm that we talked about in a previous episode eventually eradicated most of these hacked items. You'd figure that Blizzard or someone would eventually reveal how they ever got there in the first place, but all the primary sources that existed from back then have been lost to time. Until now. Before we poke some holes into the secrets behind these hacked items, I want to show you something that at least won't poke any holes in your walls. I'm sure you've heard of the signature metal posters from Displate before, but if you haven't checked them out yet, I would highly suggest it. I recently picked up some of these things and wow, they're actually pretty sick. Their catalog consists of over 2 million works of art to choose from, and even contains selections officially licensed from some of our favorite franchises. Unlike anything else you could put on your walls, these things stand out and stay vibrant. So no matter what your passions are, you can deck your favorite places out with them. Each displate comes with a magnetic kit, so everything you need to quickly hang these up comes right in the box. They even have a new product called Textra, which adds 3D contours to the prints. Need a good gift idea that will arrive fast? Displate's got you covered. Pick yours up today by visiting displate.com/Cooley or use code Cooley on checkout for up to 30% off. In LOD, there were 3 ways to play online. First, there was closed BattleNet. This is where all of these items inevitably showed up, and the only place they could ever be worth anything. Here, the games are hosted on BattleNet, and the characters also exist only on BattleNet. This is similar to what we see in D2R these days. Secondly, there was Open BattleNet. In this mode of multiplayer, games were hosted on BattleNet, but they did rely on a connection to the player who created the game. The characters, however, were stored locally, meaning you could take your single-player characters into these games. As you can imagine, because of hero editors, this was the most broken way to play online. Most games consisted of the utmost ridiculously hacked characters with impossible items. Then lastly, there was TCP/IP. This is where the games are hosted locally on someone's server, and the character files are also local. This is how people could have LAN parties in Diablo 2 back in the day. It's also how multiplayer mods like Project Diablo 2 and D2GA exist. Of all the online modes of play, closed BattleNet was the most secure. It was the real online experience, as some would say, and the home of the in-game economy, the big payload for hackers. Players could get banned for botting, duping, cheating, and more, and in those days, that actually happened a lot. If you sent the wrong packet on closed BattleNet, all of your accounts could get banned on the spot. So if someone was going to try to crack the code, they had better know exactly what they were doing. And that's where TCP/IP and Open BattleNet come into play. What you're about to hear is probably the reason why neither of these modes exist in the new version of the game. One hacker in particular created a server called D2GS, or Diablo 2 Game Server. This was just a private TCP/IP server for his own testing purposes, and it mirrored the patches of Diablo 2 precisely. Since this was his own server, he could sniff and send packets at will, with no fear of actually being banned. But it would give him an idea of what worked and what didn't. Eventually, he figured out a pretty big exploit. If you lagged the game enough, it was possible to put it in a bugged state of existence. In this state, the game would save for some players, but not for everyone. The server would then rely on packets sent from the players confirming that their character was still in-game. But as the creator of D2GS figured out, the server was way too trusting with this. You could basically tell the game that the active character you're currently on is indeed connected to this bugged game. Figuring this out on his own server, the creator of D2GS just needed to bridge the gap. He needed a way to technically connect to BattleNet, but with his active characters being local. Open BattleNet was the perfect solution. When trying to join a game, if you sent the right packet at exactly the right time to one of those bugged games, you could trick the server into placing your active character into that bugged game. His discovering of this exploit through TCP/IP resulted in the wildest era of items that D2 has ever seen. Occy Rings, Constricting Rings, and many of the supposed fused uniques were all brought in this way. But you might be wondering, why didn't he make better items? It's possible to make things way crazier than what we saw, so why didn't he? The answer to that all comes back to money. The creator of D2GS sold his findings to a select few other individuals across the world for a lot of money. Together, they would all become what we'll call the exploiters, basically a D2 crime ring of item importers. Knowing that their exploit would eventually be discovered and patched, they devised a pretty elaborate scheme. All of the hacked items that we've seen were created in the same short window of time, but the exploiters planned on releasing them in intervals. At each interval, a more powerful hacked item would be sold to the public. They could profit off the hype, watch the item dupers destroy its value, and then repeat the process. This went on for months and racked in thousands of dollars for the exploiters, but eventually, the constricting arm of Blizzard would catch up to them. The Rust Storm put an abrupt halt to the cycle. It methodically eradicated these hacked items and anything like them on people's accounts. While it did put an end to the era, it didn't quite put an end to everything. There are still some artifacts of that time period that exist on closed BattleNet to this day. With their plans being cut short, it really makes you wonder what items the exploiters made that the public never saw. Whether you collected hacked items or hated on players who did, their existence excited our most extreme emotions in the best ARPG ever made.